Hello guys, today I'll be doing the part 3 of the creatures in my world building project. So in this video, I might mention some of the creatures I showed in the last videos because I'm gonna change my video style a little bit. I'm gonna take my work more seriously. So anyways, I will start with the desert regions. The desert regions is doesn't necessarily refer to a single region, but like a bunch of deserts in my world, especially the ones that don't have many mammals. Here, you can find the armadillos, which is a normal theropod that I showed in the last video, and the largest in my world. You can also find the electric wyverns, and you can also find a subspecies, I guess you shouldn't call it subspecies, but a species of caprodon called sandvale caprodon. Unlike the snowy caprodon, the sandvale caprodon doesn't have the fluffy feathers to protect against the cold. Instead, it's actually missing feathers in some areas because it lives on really hot deserts. Its head has this loose and excessive skin that serves for temperature regulation, similar to vultures. But they do share a lot of similarities to snowy caprodons. For example, they are just as aggressive, especially when someone comes near to their young. They're really aggressive and will like destroy you if they can. And they don't seem to have overall many physical differences. Except for the colors and the missing feathers, their size is pretty much the same, and so is their strength and bite force. Just like the snowy caprodon, they also have really big teeth, which give its name, which means boar tooth. They can also compete against teenager armadillos, which fit a different role than the actual full-grown armadillos. They're more like raptors. I should really show them on the next video. On the same environment, you can also find these geckos, which I haven't named yet. These geckos, just like other geckos in my world, they serve the role of scavengers. They aren't apex predators, and they primarily only feed on dead animals, though they can sometimes hunt small creatures, but they generally just feed on corpses. What's interesting about these geckos and some other geckos in my world is that they have this excessive skin on their face, which not only serves for temperature regulation, but it's also really useful for mating, since males during the mating season, this skin becomes blue. They are also the only geckos in my world that have spikes on their tail, and those spikes they can kind of absorb some of the bacteria that it consumes when it's eating corpses. And when it attacks a victim with those spikes, the victim can become like really sick. It's not necessarily gonna kill every single animal, but it can make them really sick. By going a little bit south on the same continent that you can find the theropod deserts, you can find this region which is full of volcanoes, lava, and beaches. While most animals here are highly heat resistant, they're not indestructible. So they don't really live near where you can find lava. Those regions are mostly empty. But here you will find creatures such as the Berserkomata, which I showed on the first video, and the Diablo Crocuta, which I think I showed on the second video. The Diablo Crocuta is actually the apex of the region, which is really interesting since it is a continent that is mostly dominated by theropods. Here you can also find the Shurkor, which isn't that much different when it comes to behavior to that gecko that I showed on the beginning of the video. But it is a little bit more predatorial and it doesn't have spikes on its tail, though it is still a scavenger. I've actually created this one first, And as you guys can see, its head is inspired, at least this red structure is inspired on a rooster. It's like a family of geckos in my world that have calms similar to roosters, and they all pretty much serve for temperature regulation but also for mating. But here in this region, you may find a creature that is generally considered peaceful, but if it is threatened, it is gonna be really dangerous. This creature, which I haven't named, but it is a theropod. This dinosaur, it is not really a predator. It doesn't prey on animals. It mostly eats insects, plants, and it also absorbs minerals when it's like destroying the hives where insects lives. And all those minerals it consumes goes to its back, and it's like the armor on its back is like pretty much made of minerals from its diet. But the most unique feature from this dinosaur is the fact that between each of its plates on its back, there are electrical organs that can generate electricity, of course. That was obvious. And the way it attacks its enemies when it's threatened is that it spreads sand or like mineral powders through the air, and then it uses the club on its tail to hit the ground and like spread the electricity throughout the air, and potentially hitting its target. I wanted it to be some sort of distant relative to Berserkomata, which suggests that Berserkomata had omnivore ancestors. And the reason is because both of them have this armored head, which serves for headbutting in this electric theropod. And in Berserkomata, it doesn't really have a purpose. And both of them have beaks, which in Berserkomata became sharper since it is now a carnivore. But in this theropod, it's used to destroy hives from the insect it eats. In a separate group of continents, you will not find many theropods, if any theropods at all, except for like birds. This is the region where most mammals live. Here, I've only officially created one creature, at least it's the only one I've finished, except for the giant bats. But this creature that I'm talking about is gonna be the largest primate present in my world. And it's not an ape, it is a monkey, the Monstropithecus. You guys are probably seeing the drawing, there's a size comparison to a man. I think I'm actually gonna make it bigger because, I don't know, it's cooler. But anyways, the Monstropithecus is the largest primate in my world. It is basically a giant baboon, but it is much larger and much stronger, even stronger than something like a gorilla. They are primarily omnivores, feeding on bamboos and insects, but there have been cases where they hunted small or even big animals. They can be really aggressive and territorial, and there have been cases where people literally found holes they do on trees by punching them. Their fists are like absolutely destructive. Like it was one of the most powerful weapons in the animal kingdom. It can smash like some of the toughest objects you can find. They live in groups with a single male that is kind of like the silverback gorilla, you know. The male has a red snout, and it becomes the leader pretty much. They can also use bamboos and wood, rocks, and use as weapons similar to humans. You all probably remember this ecosystem that I talked about on the last video, or at least the creatures that I added for it, the Versophomata and the Caprodon. But I mentioned, I did like some sort of foreshadowing that would be a specific apex predator that could feed on caprodons and also feed on Versophomata. And this predator is actually some sort of subspecies. It is the snowy armadillos. I kind of did this drawing very fast, so I don't think it's really that good. I could make it better, but it's just so you guys can have an idea of what it is. It is an armadillos, just like the ones we see in deserts, but they have a feathery coating, and little mini feathers can come out of its armor, sort of like the fur in an armadillo. And it obviously lives on the snow. But there are some behavior differences from it compared to the desert version. First of all, their heads are a little bit taller. That's because the snowy armadillos are much more intelligent compared to the desert armadillos. And the reason they're more intelligent is because they need that intelligence to pretty much treat their young better. Since I've mentioned before that armadillos are horrible parents who literally never sees their young. The snowy armadillos is different. Since they live in snowy ecosystems, the eggs will need the body heat from the female. They don't have the strong, really hot sun that you can find in deserts. They need the body heat of female armadillos, so the mothers are much more loving to their young. They stay with them until they hatch. But just like the desert armadillos, they are aggressive and really strong. They're the apexes of its region. I think this video is getting a little bit too long, even though it's right now shorter than the other ones. But if I talk about one more ecosystem, it's probably going to be longer. So I just wanted to take a minute to clarify a few things about my world building project. So those are just very simple descriptions of a few ecosystems in my world. And like the creatures that I mentioned, there aren't necessarily only exclusive to those regions. I mean, just like Earth, there are many different types of ecosystems. So I'm more focused on showing you guys the creatures. I might think about the map of my world later. I just have to know a little bit more about geography and all of that. It's a really complex subject that I unfortunately don't have much interest, even though it is important. But anyways, I hope you guys liked this video. Please subscribe to my channel and click the like button and share my video with others. Thank you guys for watching. Have a nice day.